In fact, I was in her will when she passed away. She had over 39 properties. And I was in her will because she goes, and in the bit, and she goes, no one but my Irishman, Brian Buffini of this company, is allowed to sell these properties. Wow. And so in each one of their kids, and I helped their kids and grandkids, but it was the follow-up, it was the connection. I built a relationship with her. I'd go by and see her. I'd write personal notes to her. Every client I ever got. And when I got so I applied this method. My father used to say the work will speak for itself. So I developed a methodology so that the work, because the work didn't speak for itself. I had to make it speak. So I built a marketing system that was built around following up with my best customers. I'd write personal notes. I heard George Bush Sr. How'd you get to the White House? I write 10 personal notes a day. So I started writing 10 notes. Let's write 10 notes. Our company today sells 15 million personal notes a year. Really? Because I teach writing personal notes, and then people say, what are the notes you sent? So I would provide items of value in the mail rather than, here's a picture of me standing in front of a Rolls Royce or whatever. Right. And I'm number one in real estate, which nobody cared. It was, hey, here's how to lower your taxes, or here's how to protect yourself from identity theft. And so every month I'd send something of value, personal notes, personal contact, build relationships, and then built this system over time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Excellence Project. My name is Eric Worre, and today I have a treat. His name is Brian Buffini. He is like a real estate training guru. He has trained millions of people around the world on how to have a more successful business. He's learned how to work by referral, teach people how to work by referral, which I think you'll find interesting, how to stay in contact with people that he builds relationships with and deepen those relationships, and how that's really a cheat code in order to be able to have a more successful business, whether it's network marketing or anything else. So I think it's a life skill as much as it is a business skill. And I think you should pay attention to it. So we talk about everything. We talk about failures and falling on our face and personal development and some of our heroes. We have some common heroes in our personal development journey. I enjoyed it. I think you'll enjoy it too. And a whole bunch of tips and tricks in here. If I was you, maybe listen once when your hands are busy and your mind's free, and maybe listen again and take some notes, see if you can capture some things out of this. So with no further ado, let's jump right into my conversation with Brian Buffini. Brian Buffini, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Eric.
I'm glad you're here. So you were in town doing an event at our studio.
Yes, sir.
And I hear that went well.
Fantastic. What a place. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
It was a privilege.
It's super fun to be able to, it's a nice spaceship we have over there to be able to do interactive events.
Yeah, no, I looked at the studio, and again, the fellas who kind of invent the technology were presenting it to me. Yeah. And I said, well, before I go spend a boatload of money, who's doing it well? Right. And then I said, who's doing it best? And they said, well, you got to go see Eric Worre's. And I said, okay. And we went out there, and I went there and I toured it, and we had the tour, and I came back and they said, well, are you interested in buying? I said, absolutely not. I'm interested in hopping to Vegas on a regular basis. So we had an event yesterday. It was brilliant, and your team was a credit to you. Yeah, thank you. And we've done 2,500 seminars, and I don't know if I enjoyed anyone more than I did great. Yesterday. Super
great. Well, I'm glad you were. The only reason we built it is because we had a friend who had one, not quite to the level of this. Right. And we needed to do an event where like, hey, can we rent it? He said, sorry, I'm not renting it to anybody right now. Everybody's asking, but I'm not, hope it's okay. And we're like, okay, I guess we got to build one. So, same type of deal. It's like, if we would have had it to rent, we would have taken the rental opportunity as well.
Great. Well, thanks for letting the Irish immigrants in to rent.
Yes, I was going to talk about that. Yeah. So you grew up in Ireland.
Yeah.
Son of a house painter, third generation entrepreneur.
Right.
What was the upbringing like?
Yeah. So, the beautiful thing when you're growing up, Ireland was a very poor country for a very long time, up until basically the end of the 1990s. Okay. So we were considered a third world country, but you didn't know it. We didn't know we didn't have anything. So 5 boys and a girl, and our grandparents on the weekends. So 710 square feet. Small little house. Dad's a house painter. His father, 5 generations of house painters. And so, the good news was we didn't have any heat in the house, but you never got a cold seat in the bathroom. That's what we used to say, because someone had been there just before, right? In one bathroom, 5 boys in one bedroom, very close family. And great principles. So we were house painters, entrepreneurs. We were the only people with a phone on our street.
Wow.
So the neighbors would come and use the phone, and so because you're an entrepreneur, like you needed a studio, my dad needed a phone. So great opportunity, Irish humor, education, good place to start, makes you hungry, and just there was no opportunity. So I came to America in 1986. I was a soccer player, came over here.
Really?
Won a national championship, playing soccer.
What was your position?
I was what's called a sweeper. So I played behind, I'd like to be the free safety in football. Okay, so I played number 5. I played behind the defense and offside trap and all that. Won a national championship in 84.
Like university?
Yeah.
Okay.
Outlands College. And then came over to America.
What year?
It was 84. Yeah.
Okay. So I got to tell you my one, I only have one interesting Ireland story.
Okay.
So I'm there for business. I'm in Dublin.
Okay.
And this is 1994.
Okay.
And I realized that the World Cup's happening because everything's shut down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm in my room watching on the TV. I'm like, this is stupid. I need to find a pub or something.
For sure.
So Ireland was playing
Italy.
Germany.
Okay. In the second round. Yeah.
Germany.
Yeah.
And they beat him with this big wheel kick.
Yeah.
At the end of this. And the country went bananas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Everything was shut down. Nobody
Right.
was doing anything. Nothing was moving. And they adopted me into this pub in Dublin, and they're all singing songs and they're doing this stuff. And the guy who owned the place, like, had to lock the doors at like 2 a.m. or something. So he gave the keys to the people inside the pub.
It's called a lock-in.
They locked them in. They locked us all in.
Yep.
And everybody was singing songs all night.
Yep.
Everybody's leaving the money for the guy. I'm like, this doesn't happen in the United States. So we spill out at like 7 a.m. And then I went to go do my events that I was doing there that day.
A little woolly.
But man, it was the first time I really understood the importance of football over there.
Oh yeah.
To the culture.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't just beating Germany.
No.
This is old.
Yeah.
This has old, like, resentments built in.
Oh
this has,
yeah. Well,
this has all
kinds of
kinds of stuff.
Well, they say the difference between an Irishman with Alzheimer's and an American with Alzheimer's is that the Irishman will forget everything but the grudges.
Yeah. Yes.
So, by the way, if as funny as it sounds, because you're motivating and encouraging people to change their lives and so on and so forth. And I said Ireland was a very poor country. Like, if you watch the movie The Commitments, that's the Ireland I grew up in.
Really? That was a good movie.
That World Cup that was in the US was the start of what became known as the Celtic Tiger. So Ireland, which is very difficult on its own inhabitants with taxes, put these fabulous pro-growth taxes for companies to come to Ireland. They had a great education system, English-speaking people, closest country to America in Europe. So the tinder was all there. When Ireland went that far in the World Cup, it changed the psyche of the whole country. You were there that's like a crossroads watershed moment for the country's history.
Really?
And so what you witnessed there wasn't just the massive exuberance of soccer and whatever else. So they point to this Celtic Tiger. For the next 12 years, Ireland was the fastest growing country in the world. China and Ireland. And that's right. Ireland today, if you go to, I don't know when was the last time you were there.
Oh, it was 7 or 8 years ago.
You'd be shattered.
Really?
If you walk down the quays, I used to run for my life as a kid to not get mugged, running down the quays of Dublin to get home. And today it is Silicon Valley of Europe. It is high tech, the hottest looking stuff you ever saw. Microsoft, Salesforce, Facebook,
I love
Google.
that.
Apple has 25% of their available cash in Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's now the Silicon Valley of Europe, amongst the most expensive place. So we went from tremendously poor agrarian culture backwards, like considered like below the African countries economically. Our greatest export was people for 150 years. So ambitious people left. And then all of a sudden, bang. And that you were there the day that Tinder was lit. That's how significant. There's
the
books
first
written about it.
round.
You were there.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, it's when I started following.
Yeah.
I started doing it. Do you have a team that you follow?
Yeah. I mean,
who's
Liverpool,
your team?
Liverpool's
You're Liverpool?
my team. Yeah. big time.
Yeah, it's like Liverpool, Manchester United.
Yeah,
or,
right.
Yeah, that they hate each other.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Well, they call Liverpool the capital of Ireland. There's more Irishmen in Liverpool, I think, than there is in Dublin.
So
How about you?
I don't have
Yeah.
a team.
Yeah.
I watch the big games.
Yeah.
The United States is starting to wake up a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah.
I went to a LA Galaxy game a
Yeah.
little while ago.
Yeah, they're great.
and pretty decent environment.
For sure. I went to see Messi up there at the LAFC.
Not a bad environment compared to,
Yeah.
you were at the Messi game?
I was.
I was at the Messi game.
Brought the family right down on.
Oh my
right down
gosh.
the halfway line.
I was right there.
Yeah. If you get a chance to go to Anfield.
And they totally gave him a break
Yeah.
to score the game, and win the game. Like, come on. The Galaxy had him that game, but Messi came in. He's amazing.
If you get to go to Anfield,
Yeah.
it's like a cathedral.
Yeah.
It is the music and the singing. You'll never walk alone. They never sit down. It is. I used to go once a month as a kid. I'd work. I've worked my whole life. Worked since I was 8 years old, and I would save and I would go over once a month with one of my dad's friends, and he'd take me over with a couple of kids, and you go to Anfield, and I'm just saying you would have goosebumps all over your body being there, experiencing that. Nothing like it.
See, that's what I always wanted. So I went and saw the Euro Cup when Barcelona won against Manchester United.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
And that was okay, but what I found out about like Euro Cup, it's not the same as the regional.
No.
Like the local.
Yeah.
I went and saw in Donetsk before it got destroyed. I went and saw Euro Cup there.
Oh yeah.
Quarterfinals.
Right.
And that was cool, but it wasn't the same. I went to Juventus. And that was like, okay.
Yeah, man.
This is different.
A little bit of juice.
There was a guy who looked like Bane from Batman with his shirt off. He would stand up behind the goal and get everybody. He never even looked at the field.
Yeah.
He just would stand up on the railing and then he'd lead all the songs and all the chants and the flags. I was like, okay, that's pretty close.
Yeah.
I did a training once in Europe, and I was trying to teach people that if they had the proper motivations, they can accomplish anything.
Yeah.
And so I get this guy to stand up. I said, okay, I will help you. He said, wanted to achieve this goal. And he'd been trying for 3 years. I will help you, but you have to be willing to accept accountability. Will you accept it? I was in front of 30,000 people.
Wow.
And he said, okay. I said, is there a team that you love? He said, yes. What is it? Manchester United. Okay. Is there a team that you hate? He said, yes. Faster. What is the team? He said, Liverpool.
Of course.
I said, okay, here's the deal. How long do you think, give yourself plenty of time. How long do you think you need in order to be able to do this, achieve this goal? And it was like 4 months. Okay, fine. We have an event 5 months from now. If you don't achieve it, you need to wear a Liverpool jersey for a month.
Nice.
Your cover page on social needs to say, I love Liverpool. You need your profile picture needs to be Liverpool.
Yeah.
He said, and he turned white. He said, you don't understand.
If you'd have taken one of his kids hostage,
my
it would have been
family
easier.
will not talk to me if this is true. I said, well, tell them that they'll help you get your goal done.
Yeah.
Because this will be a shame to the family. And he accomplished it in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, right.
Done.
That's a meaningful goal.
Took him a while.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Well done.
So anyway, for the sidetrack about all the local stuff, you had a little bit of a blueprint of entrepreneurship dropped into your psyche as a kid.
Right.
That we look at things different. We're not necessarily a member of the union. We're not necessarily, we're not going on strike because we're here to build a business.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That had to be different.
Well, growing up the way we did, when you were about 8, 9 years of age, you were sent to my grandfather's house, and which is still in the family today. And you went and you were mentors, like a kind of a Mr. Miyagi, long before Mr. Miyagi type mentorship. And down to the most basic thing. Here's how you hold a brush. Here's how you scrape. And here's how, down into the details. And he was preparing you. And he it was interesting. You'd work and you'd clean the brushes and you'd do the whole thing. And they had a number of guys working at the time. So you're cleaning the ladders and painting ladders. We had wooden ladders as well. And so the whole principle was this: You were being trained to fulfill the mission of what the family's business was can you put your name to the work? Can you put your name to that? So when you're
That's such a good life lesson.
So when you got to be about 10 or 11, you got to go to work on the jobs. And you might be if we were in a commercial building, they'd let you paint the radiators, right? So the radiators, as they'd say at home. And you'd sand it and whatever else, and you'd paint this thing. And they're actually hard to paint.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, grandfather come along and he'd inspect it. And he'd say, well, can you put your name to it? And then it got to the point that it became this filter system. Can you put your name to it? And what they understood is that if we worked in such a way that we held ourselves to a standard, that not only could we be proud of the work we did, but that's where the new business was coming from. Work in such a way that people will refer you. Can you put your name to that? Well, that was the core that everyone in my family has been built into us. And then it shows up in every detail that you do. And so when I came to America, and I got in a motorcycle accident. So I'm here, I'm 19 years of age, and I'm planning to go back to Ireland. And I came to America to meet suntanned women and become suntanned. And I married an African-American girl 35 years ago, and I'm still kind of pasty. So, life doesn't turn out the way
you quite,
want. Yeah. But I got into this very serious motorcycle accident. That was it. Any sports was over. Everything was over. In and out of hospital for 2 years.
2 years. What ended up happening?
I had a tibia, fibia, compound fractures, a bunch of other breakages, but I had gangrene. So they're actually going to amputate my leg at one stage. And I didn't have insurance. They brought me to the hospital. I mean, we're growing up in Europe. You hear these terrible stories. In America, they leave you on the side of the road. Well, I got brought to a hospital and I'm all jacked up. They thought I'd broken my neck. It was a head-on motorcycle accident. And so never touched the brakes, split the helmet, the whole thing.
Wow.
So I get to the hospital and they go, sir, do you have insurance? And after they stabilized me, they put me back on the ambulance and took me over to UCSD Medical Center, which was and floor 7, ward 7, never forget it, 1986, October 30th. And it was where they were treating the local prisoners. Now they might have thought, hey, Irish guy, prisoners, they'll get along great, right? Similar family. So I went there and I had no insurance and nothing. And so it was a hard scrabble kind of deal. And Medi-Cal covered it. They gave me a chance until I eventually paid them off.
Wow.
But I eventually they put rods and screws. About 8 weeks afterwards, they did all that, but now I had to stay. So I actually didn't choose to live in America. America kind of chose me. Yeah. So now I'm 19 years of age. I don't know it at the time, but I've giant medical bills coming. To the point that literally the ambulance chasers, the first ambulance chaser I ever connected was the guy who actually were the ambulance companies. And here's your $18,000 bill. And this started. So I owed
how'd you handle it?
Well,
you owed $200,000?
$252,000 in 1986 as a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And your dad's a house painter.
Yeah.
It was a grind. So I actually had a bicycle and I rode around town and I did paint jobs with my leg in a cast.
Wow.
I did that for about 6-7 months. And then one day I saw a sign in the window that says, we'll train realtors for free. And I go, great, that's about how much I have.
Well, before we get into realtors, I want to get into real estate, which is great because that's what you're known for.
Yeah, right.
How did you keep the wolves away from the door? I'm really interested in that.
Well, it might have been my first objection.
Because I had a strategy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I had financial Armageddon happen to me around 2001 to 2003.
Oh, really?
Terrible. Like the worst. I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Wow.
It was awful. Debts went crazy and income went away.
Yeah.
It was nuts. But I had a specific strategy of because the only way so I wasn't going to go crazy.
Right.
So I'm curious what yours was.
Well, I had a couple of things, which is I'd get these bills coming in the door.
Yeah.
Now I'm
They're
now,
calling, yelling at you.
Like I'm talking about at one stage I had 3 grapefruit in my refrigerator. That was my net worth.
Wow.
Okay. And they're calling me and they're like, and I'm a stranger in a strange land.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how this works.
Yeah.
And my phone is blowing up and you said you'd pay. And then they all went over to the bill collectors. Like I didn't know about personal injury attorneys or anything like that. I mean, I was
nothing. Yeah.
So the bills would come in and I would put them on a little mantelpiece and the new bill came in, I'd put it in the back. And when the bill fell off the front of the mantelpiece, I read it. Okay. So then I finally, and by the way, it was around that time, I met a guy in the hospital who gave me Jim Rohn's book. And I first started reading the Jim Rohn. And he was talking about your mind and the philosophy and whatever else. And I'm desperate. So I came up with this concept that I said, I'm broke one day a month. One day a month, I'm broke. The other 29 days of the month, I'm debt free, because I was so consumed by worry.
Yep.
I was so stressed out. I'd never owed anybody a thing in my life. And I'm being set upon. So I said, the day I have to pay the bill is the day I'm broke. And other than that, I'm not. And so I would call on the day I was broke, usually the end of the month, and I'd call them proactively and said, I don't have the money this month. I'm going to call you next month. And put it down on the calendar and I'll call you. And whatever I can give you, I can give you. And they were so shocked that I was calling them proactively. And I put it on, set the expectation. And sometimes it was like, I owed them 18 grand and I sent them $100. And I said, I'll call you on this date next month. And I lived, what I did was I didn't paralyze myself the 29 days I was broke. And I was depressed one day. A few Guinnesses, because it was all day on the phone, calling people I had no ability to repay.
Yep.
But it also set for me in that time that kind of resolve. So I also was 19, didn't know anything. So I really wasn't falling from something. Like you're in 2000, you probably had already achieved quite a bit.
I had a ton and it all went away.
Yeah, amazing. That's rough. So what was your system?
Very similar because you'll go crazy.
Yes.
And you'll feel bad all the time. I was literally traumatized by the mail. I couldn't look at it.
Yep.
Right. So, and to this day, I don't open.
Okay. Let me jump in on top.
I have my bookkeeper does it and then gives me a report after.
Well, let me give you this, because you'll brother from a different mother here. You remember when we had landlines in our house?
Yeah. You didn't have a caller ID.
So here's the thing. My wife, 18 years into our marriage, we're 35 years married, great woman. About 18 years into our marriage, she says, Brian, do you know that since we've been married, you've never answered the phone? I go, what? She goes, Brian, if you're standing next to the phone, you won't answer the phone. I said, I've never noticed that. She goes, oh, the rest of us have. And so I know you know what I'm talking about.
100%.
I had no knowledge of that, but you talk about the mail.
Yeah. The mail and the phone, both.
Yeah.
Then they change colors, the mail.
Yeah.
It turns orange. It turns red.
Yeah,
it turns,
right.
It becomes certified. I mean, you get FedEx.
Then there's someone knocking at the door.
So I couldn't handle it. It was, you almost couldn't breathe. It was so tough.
Yeah.
So I went once a week. I had legal stuff. I had all kinds of different things, but I put everything in 3 hours every Monday, 3 hours. And I called everyone, every single person, and they screamed and hollered and screamed and hollered and screamed and hollered. You're a deadbeat. We're going to embarrass you in front of your friends, and we're going to drag your name up and down the road, and everybody's going to know that you're a piece of shit. Blah 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 blah. So yes, but I'm calling you,
right?
And I'm just telling you where I'm at, and I'll call you next week. And I literally called everybody. I dealt with all of the stuff, and then I put it away so I couldn't see it for the next week. And they screamed and hollered the week after. They screamed and hollered like the third week. But about the fourth week, they said, you don't have to call us next week. Just give us an update when something's happening. But we do appreciate the fact that you're calling, that you're letting us know, because nobody else does like yours.
Yeah.
You put yourself in a different pile.
For sure.
This is a person who's trying,
Yeah.
but literally doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Everybody else was running and they're going on vacations and stuff. I wasn't going on any vacations.
Right.
I wasn't spending any extra money. I was just trying to deal with it. And everybody in my life said, you file bankruptcy,
Everyone.
file bankruptcy.
100%.
No.
Same as myself.
And I didn't.
Good for you.
I paid everybody.
Yep.
There was people that had written off the debt.
Yep.
Completely.
Yep.
And I still paid them. And they were like, no one has ever done this. But anyway, the coping mechanism I was interested in.
That's why you are where you are today, though, right? I mean, that's that.
I guess. I have learned to take struggles and put them in a smaller box.
Yeah.
Instead of let them consume you.
Right.
Because if I stayed with the struggle, I was never going to get out.
Right.
I had to have the other 140 hours a week focused on rebuilding.
Right.
And if I didn't do that, if I couldn't focus on that,
Right.
there was nothing.
Well, I hated that feeling so much. I was willing to sacrifice whatever needed to be done
So you don't
to
feel
not
it
have
again.
that feeling again.
Yeah. For you hadn't really developed a big net worth or whatever. I was a person who had money.
Yeah. So you fell.
Yeah. I had $9 million or whatever in a portfolio and I'm making $1 million a year.
Boom.
And gone.
Yeah.
All of it gone in like less than a year.
Right. And the other piece that people don't maybe.
So the ego gets involved.
Well, your identity, right? Because so you can find your identity in that stuff. So now, you know, and by the way, I went through one then, another one a number of years later. I had one of those bangs. We all do.
You can develop blind spots, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, or a little bit of hubris. Everything's working. Everything's working. Well, this next thing will work.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And you don't pivot quick enough. And all of a sudden you're in a little bit of a bind.
Well, I love hearing this story because, you know, our mentor, Jim, used to say, do you want to hear the story or the whole story? Remember he used to say that? And
right.
I was at a board meeting about a year ago. And there were some big bangers in this room, people who built giant billion-dollar companies and things like that. And there was a gentleman who'd been brought in, and he would just say nothing in the meetings. And so the gentleman who was he was the chairman emeritus, and I'm not going to tell you his name, but he has products we've all used. So he says to this one gentleman, you know, you don't really say much in these meetings, and we really would like to hear from you. And your input is important. And he was kind of intimidated to talk, and he says, I don't know why I'm on this board. He said, I have recently had a business failure. And I got to be honest with you, I feel like a fraud sitting here amongst all you uber successful people. And everyone in the room starts laughing. And now his face starts getting red. He feels totally humiliated. Mm-hmm. And then the co-chairman of the board says, he goes, we've all been there. We've all done it. Maybe it's time for us to go around the room and tell just maybe one of our major failures. We don't have time for them all. And we went through this thing, and it was the most cathartic thing. About 3 months later, I bump into him, and he said, I think that board meeting saved my marriage. Because I thought I was the only one.
I was not.
I was the only one. And everyone else, right? The grass is always greener. Like Eric Worre, he got this and that and the whole thing. Never had a bad day in his life.
Yeah.
You know, never made a wrong turn, never made a bad decision, never had any doubt, never had any fear. You know, butter wouldn't melt in your mouth. And so
I had all those things, but one thing helped me. You realize in those situations who your friends are, who's not, who runs away.
Yep.
Who calls and just says, hey, I want you to know I'm here. Mm-hmm. I talked to a guy who was in the country club, which my house was in foreclosure in.
Yep.
And he said, Eric, let me tell you something. People like you always come back. Mm-hmm. You can never count people like you. He said, like somebody like me, huh? Yeah, yes. Yeah. Somebody like you. You're always going to find a way. Yeah. You're not going to be stopped. You're not going to be broken by this. You're just going to make it. Yeah. And you got to deal with these different, chirping birds who are. I
had an old military guy who came by my house who was no motivational guru of any sense to the capacity.
Those are the best.
I used to play golf with him, and he came by, and it was Christmas. This was after we'd had I've owned 47 businesses, and one of them failed. And that one failure haunted me. I'd say it haunted me for 6 years.
Wow.
And he came by one Christmas, and he's bringing little kids. I had 2 small kids at the time. And he brings by this basket and whatever else. And he just says to me going out the door, it's not how hard you fall, it's how high you bounce. Closed the door and walked out the door. Is the late Tom Kelly. And now those words stay with me for the rest of my life. And, that's the beauty. And I love, talking to you and, listening to your story as well. It's like people just have to find courage in that and encouragement in that. And the most magical thing is, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And the other magical one is, I did it before, I can do it again.
Yeah.
Those 2 statements, I think, can transform any life.
Right. And figure out coping mechanisms while you're going through it.
Right.
Who are you listening to?
Yeah.
What are you allowing to get you down?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, man, you can't sleep during these times. It's really, it feels dark and lonely. And that's why you need to get into something proactive. Yeah.
The worst thing about this type of failure is the worst thing than losing your money is you lose your confidence.
Yeah.
And you question your ability to make good decisions. Sure. And when you get this next opportunity and that entrepreneurial fire goes and that ambition wants to fire and you're going, is this another one of these? Is this another one of these? But you learn your tendencies and you see, no, that's my pattern. How do I guard against that? Right. And then, okay, I'm going to slow down. It might be a bit more thorough this time. I might do a business plan that's real, whatever it is. But like I did do it before and I can do it again. That's why I think it takes 6 hours to put a bad deal together and 6 years to recover from it.
Yeah. Bad deals can show up really quick, or bad relationships in business can show up really quick. And what's funny for me is coming out of that situation, I tried to get it all in a couple of years of what I had lost.
Yeah.
So I was swinging for home runs.
Right.
And that was a mistake as well. So I had to let that go.
Right.
And start hitting singles.
Well, psychologically, that's right. It's called homeostasis. Homing pigeon wants to return home.
I was just like, this is not right. I got to get back to my 9 million. I got to get back to my $1 million a year.
I'm going to buy a house on the same street where I got it foreclosed.
Yes. I used to ask my friends, like, hey, do you have any ideas on how to make $1 million a year? And they laughed and laughed. And like, well, yeah, add 20 years to a good idea and work your butt off and don't get paid for a long time. Yeah. Oh, that's how you do it. I don't have that kind of time. So anyway, so the first venture immediately after that did not succeed. Second venture did. And then off we went.
Now here we are. And now you're the rock star and never had a bad day in your life.
Well,
right. That's what they think.
I like to use them. I do try and remind people of the bad days because, there's somebody listening to this right now that's going, wait a minute. These guys are both, top of their field and they went through that. If I'm going through my stuff, maybe it's
what would you say you did learn? Like what if you obviously took what you learned from that and built your current empire. What would be the biggest things you learned?
I think you have to have urgency, but you have to have patience as well. Patience with urgency, right? So it's going to take a minute. So the other thing is, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Just stop digging, because we can be delusional and make the situation much, much, much worse. Some unfortunate thing happens in your business. If you don't quickly, almost overreact to reducing your lifestyle to get your expenses below your income, whatever that income is, then every day you're moving forward in this delusion. Right. You're digging a deeper hole.
Right.
And so many people do that. They just keep like, well, no, this is difficult, but we have to have Christmas. Yeah. And we still need 2 cars, and we can't take the kids out of school. Yes, you can. Right. You got to get your financial footprint small. Right. So you have choices and options, and you have flexibility. You don't have this huge monster that is chewing up all of your efforts and gobbling all of the revenue that you're bringing in.
It's the death of our idea. It's the ego, right?
Yeah.
A friend of Zig Ziglar used to say, ego is edging God out.
Yeah.
And you got to get humble. And I remember, so I had.
And do it fast. It's about speed.
Yeah.
How quickly can you do it?
Right.
Well, I'm going to lose money on this. So?
Right.
So how quickly can you do it?
Right.
I had a friend of mine that was about moving in Palisades. So he bought a house in Palisades. Okay. And then his wife didn't want to move in there. So he's like, oh. So he sold, she was terrified of fire. So she said, she was imagining she was going to get burned alive in her house. So he's like, oh, what are you talking about? I mean, this is crazy. So he ended up selling it for $800,000 loss.
Oh, wow.
And then 2 months later, it burned to the ground. So was it a blessing or was it a curse?
Right.
Which one? It's fun. You have to have your perspective on how you're looking at this stuff, right? So speed. If you have a terrible thing happen in your business, speed of reducing your financial footprint is probably the number one thing. Yeah, and then focus on your skills.
Right.
Focus what got you here. And then put in the reps.
It's your skills that pay the bills.
It is 100%. Yeah. People ask in my field, do you have any advice? My advice is just lean on the skills. Right. Because if you become highly skilled, if you can put your name to it, right?
Yes, sir.
Then you're going to have more confidence. If you have more confidence, you're going to take more action.
One of the things we're dealing with, I have 6 kids, right? So I have this gamut of ages. So I'm around all their friends. And a number of them are disillusioned, right? The average age of first-time buyer right now is 38.
Really?
38. I mean, how old were you when you bought your first house?
Oh, but I don't know if we'd call it buying.
Yeah, right.
It was like, they put my name on a piece of paper, but I didn't ever feel like I owned for quite. Yeah, it was in my 30s.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I would say a lot of people, our age did it younger. And now every year is going on. And so they're getting further and further away. And think about it. Like, what did you have to, a house was 250 grand. You had to save 25 grand. And it was more money back then, but you ground and ground. Now you want to buy a house, depending on what city you're in, it could be 500 grand.
Bananas.
And I'm 26 years of age. So what's happening is, and we've seen all these studies where millennials are going, okay, I'm a little overwhelmed at the prospect of this. So now I'm going to swing for the fences. And so that's where the online betting has gone through the Richter scale.
More spent on online betting than in investing and saving.
100%.
In the United States
and
last
why?
year.
The answer is why? Because they're the speed issue.
The speed
Like
plus dopamine, yeah.
Right, yeah, right. It's the dopamine for sure. But it's going to be a grind. If you want this bad enough, you're going to have to sacrifice for it. Yeah, I feel like it's overwhelming. Now I'm going to put it all on black. I'm going to put it all on the Raiders. I'm going to put it all back on the hockey game. And what's happening is, as you and I know, the compounding cycles are where fortunes are made.
Yeah, and people don't understand that. I had this lesson taught to me when I was 23. I had 18 jobs before I was 23. I was just like a screw off. Did everything you can do minimum wage.
Yeah.
And I sat down with this guy. He was involved in real estate, and he had like 3 or 4 different businesses, very successful. And I said, I want to change my life. I'm sick of this. He said, can you get 0.3% better a day? I'm like, well, that's not that much, I suppose. Yeah. Can you do it every day? Yeah. Okay. If you do that, it's 100% year one. On you, 200%, 400%, 800%, 1,600%, 3,200%, 6,400%.
Yeah.
And 6,400% was like 7 years in. 7 years in, I made $1 million.
Right.
Because I was willing to do those little grindy things, compounded.
Yeah.
Right. When other people weren't.
Yeah.
They were either trading time for money, or they wanted everything now.
Yeah.
Or they went down the road that Jim Rohn used to talk about. I want to do a little bit less, get paid a little bit more.
Right.
And the end of that road is do nothing and get everything.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's where half of our society is.
Right.
They want to do less and get a lot more.
Right.
So they'll go on strike for it, and they'll do all kinds of stuff for it. And,
I mean, Albert
Jim
Einstein
used to say you can't get rich by going on strike.
Right.
You have to go get it. You got to go earn it. But you're the asset. That's the other thing that I realized. You're the asset.
Right.
And if you develop you,
work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Exactly. You'll go from making a living to making a fortune.
Yeah. And there were all these rhymey things that were almost cliches, and people tune them out, but they're real.
True.
They're real.
Made me a fortune.
Yeah.
Here we are. You and I are kind of disciples of Jim Rohn and many, many others that I've met.
Yeah.
And how many men and candidly, because Jim and I became friends, and he spoke at a bunch of my events, and then we did a bunch of stuff together.
Yeah.
And the amount of people, the wild thing is the amount of people he produced that went on to have far greater success than he ever enjoyed in his life.
And he didn't mind.
He didn't mind at all.
And he didn't mind if you quoted him without giving him credit.
Right.
He didn't mind any of that stuff. He didn't even focus on that stuff.
I always did. The last time Jim Rohn, I was the last person ever to have them on stage together. Jim Rohn and Ziglar. And we were at the Milk House in Disney World. I was 5,000 people, and we put a stage in the center, and they were the crowd was around us, and we had the 2 guys together. And before Jim passed, it was and I never forget it, because Zig's the motivation guy, and then Jim, and I loved them both. They were both like fathers to me, but Jim was really influenced me with my philosophy. And Zig's doing his whole motivational thing, and it was great. And then Jim turns on, I'll never forget this. He goes, Zig, motivation alone is not enough. If you take an idiot and you motivate him, now he's a motivated idiot.
Yep.
It's just the best.
The absolute best. Do you remember TPN?
Yeah.
That was my company.
No way.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Myself and my partner, we founded that company in '94, and Jim was the first person that we
You were
signed.
Years ahead of
we were ahead of our time.
You were.
Sure. We got lucky. We were able to sell the company to in '98 to '99 to another company. So that was my first real money I ever
My
made.
sister worked for Bono, and she was Bono's masseuse. My sister's a great masseuse, and she traveled with U2 for years. And Bono has a phrase that was very powerful. He said, good ideas get better over time.
Yeah.
And you had a great idea.
Yeah.
And over time, that idea is now alive and well in many capacities in streaming
what's interesting
services.
though? I've spent, I don't know if anybody spent more than me trying to popularize personal development.
Mm.
And the truth is, personal development is pretty small. It's a small space, but it's the glue of so many spaces.
Yeah.
It's the glue in the real estate business, personal development. It's the glue in network marketing space, personal development. So it's glue. It's really good glue.
Yeah.
But as a standalone by its own thing, it's not a tremendous business.
Yeah.
So
because everybody says they want it.
Yeah. No, people are not willing to be developed.
Right.
You know, it takes somebody hungry. Yeah. It takes somebody willing. Takes somebody coachable. Yeah. And when that student's ready, the teacher shows up.
Most people want to change their circumstances, but not themselves.
Exactly.
You know,
I'd like my situation to be different, please. Right. You have to be different.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm fanatical about it. I mean, my favorite subject in school was history.
Yeah.
And so coming to America as an immigrant and looking around and, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And, I started studying it all. And it was Rohn was my first introduction. But then I want to know, well, because he would quote people and I'd read what he quoted. And then I would, he would quote Earl Nightingale. My studio is called the Nightingale Studio.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
And where's that?
In Carlsbad in San Diego.
Wow.
So, yeah, I had his widow come out and christen the thing and whatever. So I'm really into this, right? And Zig and Jim and all those guys. But to me, it always goes back to Russell Conwell with the
Acres of Diamonds.
Acres of Diamonds.
This is the
wow.
This is the only known first edition of Acres of Diamonds, and it's a tattered mess, but but it's the only one that's known from Conwell.
Right, we might have a bidding war on this here. I might make you an offer you can't refuse. Come on.
Isn't that something?
It's always hard to buy anything from a guy with a plane.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, it started with him. But I will say this. So, I mean, I'm kind of a little OCD. I'm a systemizer by nature.
Sure.
And I went through the rise of American exceptionalism economically, along with the growth of the personal development movement. So, Conwell, as you know, maybe your folks know, maybe they don't. Right, here he comes. He gave his Acres of Diamonds speech over 6,200 times. He personally funded Temple University, built the first mega church in America. And he was the guy that founded these principles that then led into that's where, how to make friends and influence people with Dale Carnegie. That's where,
Napoleon
Hill, right? And
Carnegie.
Think and Grow Rich. And each
or
one.
Carnegie.
Yeah, right.
Nobody says it right.
Right, yeah, right. That's because he was a Scot. And he was, brilliant people. And there's this whole genre, right, of people who change. The richest man in Babylon, George Clayson. So this different history.
I only read that because of Rohn.
Yeah, for sure. And they'd mention him. Yeah. And then the one regret I have in the prayer, there's one guy, because I got, I just so you know, for me, we're in the similar side of business. I do seminars, coach, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I never needed to meet Jim Rohn. I listened to his tapes until they broke. I never needed to meet him. And then I got a chance to, when I built the seminar business, to have him come to the events. And then we struck this relationship. And it was just beyond, and then Zig and all these people. But the one guy, the greatest salesman in the world with Og Mandino, and I had a chance, and this is whatever, maybe this is the lesson of today's interview. I had a chance to go hear Og Mandino live in 1992, and I said these words. I have very few regrets in my life, but I said out loud to my wife, I'll catch him next year. And I have read and listened to that man and the power of him and his YouTube clips where they might have 50,000 views. I might be 40,000 of them.
I know.
And they'll have, some cat on a surfboard will have 100 million views on YouTube. But the wisdom that, the people who absolutely changed your life. And that from that day on, when he passed away, I said, from that day on, anytime I have that sense, I want to go see that guy or I want to go do it, I do it.
Yep.
And that was in 1992. And today is 2025. And that lesson of missing Og Mandino in person, I've never missed anything since.
Yep.
I've gone to see Messi. I've gone to see Gretzky. When there's I've gone to see Michael Jordan. I've when somebody's great, when someone has, I go.
Let me tell you a story about Og.
Okay.
Because of the TPN experience, it was all personal development.
Yeah.
Right? So we invited him to come speak, and we're going to film, create some content with him, which we did. And this is the last talk he did before he died. He did his talk, and he sat outside and signed autographs and took pictures for 7 hours when he was done. Every single person just sat. I'm like, "Are you okay, Og?" "I'm fine." And everybody just patiently waited. They had their 7 hours to be able to come up and say, "Thank you. You changed my life.
Wow.
You did this, you did that." And I was mad at him because you know how he died?
No.
He fell off his roof cleaning out leaves out of his
Oh,
gutter.
I did hear that. In Arizona, right?
Like, Og,
Yeah.
pay some kid. At some point, you don't need to clean out the leaves out of your own gutter.
Yeah.
It's like, I even talked to my parents who are still in good health. Don't put yourself in a situation where you can fall.
Wow.
They're both in their 80s.
Yeah.
Just don't, because falling is the worst after a certain age.
You think about him, right? He flew with Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
He had PTSD, lost a marriage and a relationship with his child.
Yeah.
Became an alcoholic, getting ready to commit suicide. He hears the Hallelujah chorus on a Christmas Eve. I mean, it was that actually later on, that scene in Shawshank Redemption where Morgan Freeman's looking in the window and it's the gun is there. That came from Og Mandino, because Og Mandino was from Natick in Massachusetts, which is where Stephen King is from. So Stephen King, who wrote Shawshank Redemption, that's his hometown hero.
My favorite author.
Yeah. So he put that scene in of him looking in the window and he buys the compass instead of the gun. Well, Og ends up, he's $10 in his pocket, going to go kill himself, and he doesn't. He goes to the church and hears the Hallelujah chorus, and then gets back to his mom saying, "You're going to be a great writer one day." Right? Starts off and does his whole thing, and becomes the editor of Success Magazine, writing the book at night. The numbers are this: in the second half of the 20th century, the only book that sold more than The Greatest Salesman in the World was the Bible.
Really? I didn't know that.
He was that prolific. And so that's the beauty, like having a chat like this. And this has been great for me. I don't know if anybody's getting that notice, but
come on.
I'm glad I came.
Our group is connected to this.
But I would say this, no matter where the heck you are, I mean, there's a fella who was at the very bottom of everything.
Yeah.
And became this massively influential human being.
Yeah.
Jim Rohn, the influence he's had on you and I. You and I are connected like day one because we've had our lives shaped by similar people.
Yeah. The Greatest Salesman in the World. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. The scrolls in that book, he wrote in one night. One night. His wife gave him a little tweak the next morning after she read them. Right. And he's like, you know what? I'm missing. He added a scroll to it after that, but one night and then created the story after that. Those still to this day are my favorite books, are philosophical novels that tell a story, like The Wealthy Barber, The Greatest Salesman, or, The Alchemist.
The Alchemist. Yeah.
Things like that.
The Alchemist, when he published that book, it sold less than 1,000 copies.
Long tail.
And then bang, people start rediscovering it. Hollywood rediscovered it. Millions and millions and millions of copies.
I wish I could write fiction because those are the most interesting.
Sure.
But
that's all right. We do
I
what
don't know
we
if
do.
It's a limiting belief, but I can't. I don't know how to do that.
You know what? Ballers want to be rappers and rappers want to be ballers. I've written books that have sold well, but I go, as a writer, I'm a great speaker.
Right. Yeah, right. Well, let's pivot into what you're great at.
Okay.
In addition to the personal development, because I'm sure it infuses everything that you do. You find your way into real estate, which, when I ask around, you start seeing trends, right? In wealthier circles. It's one of like three things: insurance, real estate, or they picked some common thing and became great at it. There's a huge mansion next to my house where I grew up, and the guy made wire hangers. That's all he made.
Yeah.
I've got a neighbor friend of mine here his family has a huge farm. He's worth $100 million, but it's farming.
Yep.
It's they picked something.
Get good at
They
it.
make tissues. They make
the guy
bottles.
who invented WD-40. If you ever been to Coronado Island,
Yeah.
The biggest, most magnificent mansion on the ocean in
It's the
Coronado Island is the guy who
WD-40.
went. And you know what?
Yeah.
That company has only ever had one product in its history.
Right.
Focus, focus, focus.
Yeah. So, so you get introduced to real. Talk to me about your origin story in real estate.
Yeah, so here I am. I'm actually the first day I walked into a real estate interview, I had my leg in a cast and I was on crutches.
Right.
And but the good news is, real estate is the lady liberty of all business. You know, if you can fog a mirror, you can pass the interview.
Yeah.
And so I got in the door. Now, an ironic story, true story. I kind of make fun of it, but like I met a guy in a bar, and which is where Irish people go to think and plan, by the way. And a guy hands me
your
this.
Office.
He hands me this card, and on the bottom of it, it says $1 Million Club. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, poor immigrant, I'm down on me look, bad accent. So I've never met a millionaire before. And I don't find out till later on that he sold $1 million of real estate, which means he made 30 grand, about 15 grand after expenses. He should have had a food stamp on his business card. You know, I was like, but I went in for an interview and they get me in the door and you're trained all the way. So I went to the training systems, cold call, door knock, expired, for sale by owners, banging on the doors, bang, 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 bang. Find them, fleece them, forget them. That was the number one trainer in the space at the time. That was his motto.
Really?
Well, that flew in the face of, can you put your name to that?
Yeah.
So a great example will be this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to meet people. I'm going to build relationships and I'm going to try to provide value. So I would go on open houses that no one else would hold, like even in rougher neighborhoods. And I remember I was a couple of weeks into the business. I don't know very much about the business yet. I'm learning. I'm going through all the training. I don't like the training. It was in violation to me of what I've been raised with. This lady walks in the door. And she's about 5 foot tall, about 300 pounds. She's got a kind of disheveled appearance, spaghetti on her blouse. She walks in, walking through the door. Who are you? I'm Brian. Where are you from? You got an accent. I was a lot thicker back then. And she goes, okay, great. She looked around the house. She goes, okay. She says, well, call me there's the 3 questions I want to know about this house. Call me, let me know. So I get back to the office, I do the work, and I call her that evening. And I go, Anna, it's Brian Buffini, just following up with you. You asked me these 3 questions. I have it for you. And she didn't listen. She goes, oh, you called. They never call. I go, sorry? She goes, they never follow up. Who? Realtors. I go, okay. She goes, here's my address. Come on over and see me. Bring a purchase contract. Now, I had never filled out a purchase contract. And I had like a sample. I go over. This is true as I'm sitting here. I sit down with this lady. I walk in the door. I never gave her the information. She just wanted to see would I follow up. Mm-hmm. I go into this house. I sit down with her. Little Mexican lady. She walks through. It turns out it was salsa, not spaghetti. Mm-hmm. Right? I was new to the country.
Yep.
And she basically filled out the form for me, showed me what to do. And she goes, you followed up. I can see your energy. Go get me that house. Be who you say you are, and you'll be my realtor. Well, I bought her. She had 10 grandkids. And in the next 18 months, she bought every one of them a home.
Wow.
Through me. In fact, I was in her will when she passed away. She had over 39 properties. And I was in her will because she goes, and in the bit, and she goes, no one but my Irishman, Brian Buffini of this company, is allowed to sell these properties. Wow. And so in each one of their kids, and I helped their kids and grandkids. But it was the follow-up. It was the connection. I built a relationship with her. I'd go by and see her. I'd write personal notes to her. Every client I ever got. And when I got so I applied this method. My father used to say the work will speak for itself. So I developed a methodology so that the work didn't speak for itself. I had to make it speak. So I built a marketing system that was built around following up with my best customers. I'd write personal notes. I heard George Bush Sr. How'd you get to the White House? I write 10 personal notes a day. So I started writing 10 notes. Let's write 10 notes. Our company today sells 15 million personal notes a year.
Really?
Because I teach writing personal notes, and then people say, what are the notes you sent? So I would provide items of value in the mail rather than, here's a picture of me standing in front of a Rolls Royce or whatever, right, and I'm number 1 in real estate, which nobody cared. It was, hey, here's how to lower your taxes, or here's how to protect yourself from identity theft. And so every month I'd send something of value, personal notes, personal contact, build relationships, and then built this system over time. And what happened is I was in debt as a 19-year-old, and I was a millionaire by the time I was 23.
Really?
And by the time I was 28, I was the number 5 realtor in the United States. I was doing over 100 sales a year, all by referral. I had no advertising budget, high margins, high net worth, and tremendous trust with my clients. And then what happened is people said, real estate is full of conventions, as you know. And so they go, well, can you come and be at the convention? And you've won all these awards. And I had no interest. But I had this one gentleman say, hey, I'd really like you to come do me a favor, my broker. So I said, okay. And I sit on this panel of people. Can you tell us how you do it? And these were all like, they had huge advertising budgets. And they had TV commercials and big flash stuff and whatever.
All volume.
And I'm like, why am I here? And so I shared what I did. And when I finished up, I was at a large real estate convention with thousands of people. There were hundreds of people standing in line talking to me. Can you tell me how you do it? I want to do what you do. And I'm like, really? I want to do what you do. And then the company said, can you come here and tell us how you do it there? Can you come? And over time, because I had systemized this, I built out a bit of a team at this stage. So I had multiple people who did well. So then it was like, okay, could I actually teach other people to do this the way I do it?
Yeah.
And so then that's how I got into the training side of it.
So tell me, what is the secret sauce? Because I do think that there's, a lot of entrepreneurs listen to the podcast, but in addition to that, these micropreneurs, these solopreneurs in the network marketing space do. And I think that there's some parallels. I'm always fascinated with real estate because I never really figured it out as far as using the tax benefits and from an investment side of things. I just never mastered that. But I do see the parallels in finding prospects, educating prospects, connecting with prospects, building relationships with prospects. All business is conversation. You need to be in conversation at all times. You need to make sure you're top of mind with somebody when they think about they have a need, or they might not think that they have a need, and you need to let them know they have a need. Okay, but all business is conversation. I learned that from Tony Robbins, CEO, who's a good friend of mine. He's CEO for 22 years. He lives here in Vegas. He's retired. He said, Eric, all business is conversation.
Sure.
And as simple as that little thing is, that's probably 10 years old for me. It wasn't foundational, but it's become like, all business conversation. We have a conversation. Who knows what's going to happen with us? We stay in conversation. Who knows what's going to happen?
Right.
All kinds of things could happen. But the same thing's true in the network marketing space. People need to get into more conversations. They need to increase quantity and then increase quality, and build real relationships and stop treating every person like you're hunting them. Right. But build a relationship, more of a farmer than a hunter.
Exactly.
And if you cultivate all those relationships instead of like shoot them,
if you have the work ethic of a hunter, but the mindset of a farmer.
Yes.
The
urgency of a hunter, but
hate like a father, love like a mother, right, Jimmy? I mean, you asked me what the secret sauce is, and you just laid it out in tremendous detail.
Well, but you've become like, how many trainers train at your level?
Well, we have. I mean, we're the largest coaching company in the space. I mean, we've trained over 3 million realtors and lenders worldwide, 40 countries. So 1 out of every 8 homes in America is sold through our membership. 1 out of every 7 in Canada. Wow. So if we were a real estate company, we'd be probably the largest or second largest
What's
real
the
estate
name of the company?
Buffini Company.
Buffini Company.
Yeah, it used to be called Providence.
Okay.
And then it turns out there was a company that had its name 150 years before I was born. And they said, we want our name back. So I said, great. I have my name Buffini. Can you put your name to it? So I didn't want to put my name on it, but I did. So
a good thing.
Yeah, so we built this system.
And when did that start? The system that you realized the system could be replicated.
Yeah, that was in. So I started like doing the guest speaking around 1994, 95, and then I opened up. We're 29 years in business, January 4th of this year, and I started out and I started putting seminars together, and people would come to this. And the market was a 4-hour seminar. You remember the free seminars? Og Mandino actually invented it. I don't know if you know that.
No, the regional seminar?
Because back in the day, regional seminars, you had to pay $47. And Og Mandino invented the free ticket, $47, and then, free. And then people would come and then he'd sell his stuff in the back of the room. Mm-hmm. And so I got in. The business had been a bit jaded by that. There'd been a ton of people. So always beware of people saying, no, that's been around for years. Network marketing, that's been around for years. And, when I got in, it was a slightly downturn in the market and people were like, oh, seminar speakers are a dime a dozen. Nobody trusts them, all that kind of stuff. So it's not a good time. That business is dying out. So At the time, there was 4-hour seminars,
Mm-hmm.
and they spent 3 hours and 30 minutes selling their products.
Yep.
And I was like, I thought from my client's perspective. I think that's the gift I have. I'm able to think from your perspective. So you're coming to my seminar, and I go, you're a busy realtor. You got a lot going on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a 4-hour seminar in 2 hours and 15 minutes. And what I'm going to do for 2 hours and 9 minutes is I'm going to make you laugh. I'm going to make you think, and I'm going to give you a heck of a lot of value. And then with about 5 minutes to go, I'm going to say, by the way, if you want more of this, I'm coming to town in 30 days and I have this event. When I started the free seminars in real estate, the average salesperson who was doing the 3.5-hour sales presentation, they closed 8% of the room. I would do 2 hours and 15 minutes, 6 minutes, here's what's coming. And we averaged for 17 years, 42%.
Wow.
So 42% of every room I presented to signed to go to our 2-day event.
I just wanted to break in for a second and ask if you're struggling to stay motivated in your network marketing business. Are you feeling stuck? Like you're spinning your wheels, but not seeing the results that you'd hope to get? Well, you're not alone. This happens to everyone. And that's exactly why I created GoPro Insider. This is a daily video coaching program designed to give you the exact steps to move forward. In an average of just 7 minutes a day, you'll get my best strategies to master your mindset, sharpen your skills, and start seeing real progress. If you're tired of guessing, searching all over the internet for solutions, and ready for a proven path to success, join me at GoProInsider.com for as low as $9 a month, just 30 cents a day. It's time to take control of your business and your future. GoProInsider.com. Okay, let's get back to the conversation.
And then in our 2-day event, I would explain in depth and give a ton of value. And they would pay, it was at one stage, it was $295 and then $395. Every time I had an airplane, the call letters were always $295 or $395, $495, whatever the price of the event was, that was the tail number. So I eventually got to the point where, and we started, getting people, we had coaching behind it. So you go to the free event, you'd go to the 2-day event, and then went to the 2-day event, we explained it in detail, had people have a great experience, but really gave them more than they bargained for. And then they go, I want more. And 32% of them would get into our coaching program. Then what we did was this. We developed a philosophy, said, we're going to coach you like the only client we have.
Mm-hmm.
We started that 29 years ago. And so we have grown exponentially by way of referral.
What form did the coaching take? How did you deliver the experience?
So not too dissimilar to how it's done today, a little more technology now and Zooms and things like that. But it was every 2 weeks we're getting a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd start out with a business analysis. Where are you at? I'm sorry?
One-on-one?
One-on-one, just one person on phone. And I've tried it all. I'm 29 years in the coaching business.
Yeah,
I've tried the group coaching and this and that. Yeah, I've tried it all. The best form of coaching is one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's okay. I'll meet you, Eric. We have a little personality profile analysis. We bought a company years ago. So we kind of get to know, okay, here's how you're wired up.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how you like to communicate. Here's your speed. Okay, secondly, we do a business analysis. Where are you at? We have single moms with 6 kids. And we have someone who ran a Fortune 500 company who got into real estate. We have the most famous celebrities in the world whose spouses get into real estate. And we have people who are 19 or 20 and they just came here and got their citizenship or whatever.
Right.
So you find out who you are, where you are, what's your business, so on and so forth. And then here's the magic. We have a system, work by referral, build, sort, qualify a database.
Work by referral is the
that's
the
our
foundation.
That's our methodology. Everything else is work by referral. So it's how do you build a database? And you have a series of concentric circles. Like you have your A+ people, your advocates. Those people, like when you do business with them, they tell you've got to work with Eric. He's the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
You have your A+, and then you have your A people. These are the people who are maybe past customers, and people forget they're past customers, and they refer you once in a while. A little stat on this: every year the National Association of Realtors does a stat, and they how many of you are extremely satisfied with the realtor services, and they get a high mark.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ask, what was their name?
Mm-hmm.
28% of people who say I was extremely satisfied with my realtor can't remember their name in 6 months. Can you remember the person who sold you the car? Can you remember? No, because they're on to the next.
Yeah.
So we teach stay in contact, build relationships. So you build up the A+, the A's, the B's. C people are new people you'd meet. And in today's world, we have the O's, the online social media network. And then there's the most important category is the D's. And the D's are the people to be deleted from your database. And people don't.
Because they'll suck up your energy.
They do. And so we came up with a French phrase called jackass.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
so you ever met a jackass?
Yeah.
Well, here's what we found. Good people know good people and jackasses know jackasses. And one of the things that absolutely deflates a self-employed person is that when you work with someone who doesn't value you, doesn't bring, robs you of your joy, doesn't trust you, constantly questions your value, tries to cut your fees and everything else, the person's driving around in the car going, I should be doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
And we go, no, you got to weed the garden. So then that becomes your database. And then we lay down a layer of activities. And again, this will be music to your network's ears, but here's what we found scientifically. The people who do the most activities are the people who make the most money.
So what are the activities that you recommend?
So we have a system layered over the top of this database. If you look at these concentric circles called contact, care, and community. So the contact.
Hold on, say that again.
So you have the circles is the database. Contact. The second one is care. And the third one is building community.
Got it.
So contact, for example, that's when you're making phone calls, you're sending out valuable emails, for example, that have resources to it. So you're reaching out, you're trying to contact people and trying to connect. How are you doing? Reaching out. On the care side, personal notes are key. And by the way, it's been around a long time. It's still the first thing that people open. It might be the only, and again, these personal notes are, and I hate to let the cat out of the bag. You'll get a personal note from me in about 3 days.
All right, here we go.
Because it's who I am. It's what I've done on this for a long time. And it'll be very simple. People think it's like some kind of matter. You're like, Eric, thanks a million. And I can't, really enjoyed the conversation and getting to know you.
Yeah.
And you get it in the mail. And here's the thing. I've told you this is coming. When you get this in the mail, you're going to go, that's cool. It is.
But I'll remember you.
And it's just that little cool thing. So then we developed a little methodology called pop buys, which is systematically during the course of the year. So, for example, it might be simple stuff.
Pop buys,
B-Y.
So,
not like Popeye.
Yeah.
So a pop buy is, so for example, and these are things back to my real estate days. It's July 4th. So the week before July 4th, I'm bringing ketchup, mustard, relish. And I'd have a little tag on it. Hey, just pop by to let you know I relish your referrals, that kind of stuff. And like we teach so many people now. So just so you know, during July 4th, there's two times a year, Costco changes their price. We have tens of thousands of clients. So that go to millions of homes. So our marketing pieces go to 3 million homes a month.
Wow.
So we provide the marketing, we give them to the agents we coach, and they send them out. We do this with pies at Thanksgiving. Costco makes these fantastic pies.
Yep.
And then this 3-pack of ketchup, mustard, relish, they adjust the price around that time. And we actually have a relationship with Costco. We call them headquarters wise, and we tell them how many we expect to see this year, and they'll stack it up because we actually would sell them out. So, because this has really worked for people. As simple as it is, like someone's coming by with a Thanksgiving, and what we do is give people the choice. Do you want this or that or the other? Oh, you want pumpkin? I'll be popping by. And so I'll give you a great story on this. When I was selling real estate, and this will be, the network marketing is full of people who are on both levels here. Just like real estate is.
Yep. I
was the number 1 agent in my company, number 5 in the country. People knew I was doing a great big business. There was a gal in my office. It was Mother's Day. And I have my car loaded up, an Isuzu Rodeo. You remember those bad boys?
Yeah, I had one.
Loaded to the rafters. Yeah, I had
the big grill on the front, the whole thing.
I had the green for Irish with the black grill.
Of course.
Great car, right?
The grill was awesome. You had to have the grill.
Yeah, grill and the wheel on the back of the car. So it's loaded up with flowers. And I'm delivering flowers to all the ladies in my database for Mother's Day. And I do it over the course of 4 days. Now I'm selling over 100 homes a year. And I have this gal, I'll never forget it. Her name is Louise. And she walks in the door. And Louise would sell comfortably 2 to 3 homes a year. And she comes to me with advice. And she goes, Brian, I don't know if you know this, but here in America, they actually have services that'll deliver the flowers for you. It's a lot more efficient, honey. And I didn't have the heart to tell her, Louise, that's why you sell 3 homes a year.
Yeah.
The reason I'm doing it, I don't have time to deliver flowers, but these are my most important people. And I would walk into an office, and I'd have 2 gals because someone had referred me. I'd walk in with there'd be 2 gals in there, And I'd walk in and, hey, how you doing? Just happy Mother's Day, just popping by, little hug, good to see you, great stuff. Oh, I'm going over to see Marlene, going over here. And like meerkats, all of these heads start popping up out of the cubicles. And the next thing they're all standing around, who is this guy? Well, he's our realtor. He does stuff like this all the time. And they all look towards the door, looking for their realtor. And what's their realtor doing? I don't know. Social media.
I will tell you
whatever.
what's funny. I love that, the differentiation. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, I have one of our business advisors who actually isn't great in the quality of the work, but he's so good at this that I can't stop doing business with him.
For sure.
I just can't.
Yeah.
Because he's always thoughtful. He's always thinking about stuff. He's always like, hey, I got extra tickets to this. Or, hey, we got our beach house. Would you like to use it?
Yeah.
Here's some weeks it's available if you'd like to use it. And hey, this, and we go on vacations together. We go skiing together.
Yep.
We go hang out. The quality's like, when
you put both together.
Oh yeah,
now you got endorsements everywhere.
I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm just saying it's not at the level.
But the relationship is why you stay with him, and the care is why you stay with him.
Yep.
Well, yesterday, so I'm at Worre Studios yesterday, and this is our first, and Lord willing, if we get invited back, not our last time being there. Well, we brought in our top 15 referred clients for the year. We had 15 people who referred us 3,000 clients last year.
What?
So in addition to the studio audience, we brought these people in. My friend Bill Hampton, who's here with me today, wined and dined them. We took them to golf courses. We took them to shows. They got massages. They got custom robes. They got all this stuff. We had a dinner with them and a nice meet and greet. And then I had them sit in the front row. Well, one of the things we did is we had little personalized gifts for each one of them when they checked into the Bellagio. So I have now, think about that. I'm doing this today. This is 35 years later.
Like on their pillow.
Yeah, just little stuff for them. So I have a gentleman in the front row. We're doing Q&A and using all the Worre technology. I love that, and the iMag and the whole thing. But we also took a couple of questions from the live audience. Well, the gentleman in the front row, he's a very, very successful broker. He has 4,000 agents. He's the top broker in the state of Utah. And he's asking me like a 15-year-old kid. He goes, Brian, when I checked into my room, you guys had this bourbon for me that very few people know that I love this bourbon. And he said, I thought, wow, he got everybody this bourbon. And then I talked to the folks at breakfast this morning, and my friend here from Montana, she got this caramel popcorn that you guys got. And she said, over here, you guys got somebody like this shampoo because they're allergic to hotel shampoos. And he goes, how did you get this information? And I said, well, let me ask you about this. I'll tell you how I got the information in a minute. But how did it make you feel when you found out? And he goes, amazing. This is a very successful, very wealthy man. Everybody likes to feel cared for.
Yeah, and feel, what I learned is the love language of wealthy people is gratitude.
Sure.
If someone is grateful, a family member is grateful, they can get all the money.
Yeah.
If they're entitled.
Brilliant. Yeah.
They'll get super annoyed.
Never heard it said like that. That's brilliant.
But you want to unlock a wealthy person, just be grateful.
Yeah.
And they want to give it.
Yeah.
But every time they do, they get punched in the face or
Exactly.
ignored or no thank you.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Or just treated like a dollar sign on their forehead.
Yeah, they only get calls when people need money and all that stuff. And if somebody's just grateful, they unlock everything.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's so true. So
how
I
did
guess
you
I'm
get
still
the
practicing that.
So
I mean, I have coaches and I'm like, hey, just and over time, gently connecting and so on and so forth. It's like, hey, by the way, if someone was giving you a great gift, this might have been asked 6 months ago. If like if someone just knew you and knew nothing, and then they got you a little gift, what would just like he doesn't remember that conversation. None of them do.
So do you know Harvey McKay?
Oh, for sure. I've had Harvey many times. Harvey's best friend is Lou Holtz, who's another one of my mentors. And they're best friends.
Yeah, I know. I've been with Harvey and Lou at here's a golf brag, so going to Ireland where golfing was created. Lou is a member at Augusta.
I know.
And so Harvey, I've done a lot of stuff with Harvey. And the reason why I asked about the Harvey question, because Harvey has his 66 questions.
Yes.
And every time, when you've had him speak, he said, pick somebody from the crowd. I need to know everything about them, answer these questions because I'm going to tell them about themselves. But when I show up and surprise them.
Yeah.
So I do the same thing. So I've golfed 17 rounds at Augusta because of Lou and Harvey staying overnight, staying in the cabins, the whole thing. But so I asked Harvey about Lou. He likes this kind of wine, like Kendall Jackson. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
But
exactly.
His wife likes chocolate. Okay, good.
Yeah.
His wife like Cabernet. Good. So I bring him his Kendall Jackson. I bring him his little mini Snickers, which he loves mini Snickers. and I bring 2 bottles of $3,000 bottle of wine, for his wife. And Harvey, I hand it to him. He ignores it. He's got basically the Kendall Jackson, the different stuff. And I hand it to him. And then Harvey says, hey, ask Eric how much this stuff costs. Cause he was laughing. I said, well, it's like $3,000 bottle. He said, screw my wife. I'm going to put this in the safe. I'm selling this stuff immediately.
The greatest. So a little aside on that.
No, he's just a great guy, but I gave him chocolates too. And he was joking about his wife. He lost her. She passed.
I heard about
recently.
That.
And
Lou's too.
Lou's getting up there and struggling.
So he brought me, my brother, and my dad from Ireland.
Yeah.
And we stayed at the cabin, played a couple of days, the whole thing. My favorite moment of that, my dad's a lifelong golfer. Okay. Mm-hmm. Everyone in Ireland plays golf. Mm. So like the club I grew up in, they were all workmen.
Yep.
Okay. And we're sitting and you know what the restaurant's like, and it's the greatest thing in the world and whatever else. And he's there for lunch and the waiter says, they have no menus, right? What do you want? What do you want?
Yeah.
Everything you want. What do you want? And my dad, could you make me a ham sandwich? Like it was this exotic order. And the guy's looking at me. And we had the story. We had the owners of the Pittsburgh Steelers are over here, the head of American Express, all these people are around. And my dad says to the waiter, he goes, am I the first house painter you ever had in here? And he goes, I reckon so. I was like, it was just a magical moment. And for the next 20 years, my dad would be at the golf club. And when the Masters is on, now this is much slopier than it looks. And it's higher.
Let me tell you how it is.
But that's the give to give.
Yeah.
And, Lou, I booked Lou all over the world. I referred Lou to all kinds of great stuff. And he did that for me. My house burned down in the California fires in 2007. Mm. And Lou, I had actually been as his guest at Notre Dame USC where they're unveiling the statue. Mm. And he always took it personally. And he waited the time and then he said, Brian, I want to do something for you, take your mind off rebuilding your house and whatever else. And it was me, my dad, and my brother.
Oh, how nice is that?
And he took us there. And then years later, I get to return the favor. So Lou's house got struck by lightning and went on fire. Can you imagine all the memorabilia?
Yeah, I do.
And I was just heartbroken for him. And this is right before his wife passed. And here's what he said. Here's what how great people think. I said, Lou, I know what it's like to lose everything and so on and so forth. I said, I'm going to come out to see you and spend a little time with you. He goes, that'd be great. He goes, Brian, I didn't lose anything that I can take to heaven. Mm. And he goes, I have the people I care about, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And I hung up the phone. I go, great. He's still mentoring me,
But talk about the notes. Like years earlier, there's some, golf tournament or something that happened in Minnesota, and Lou played and met my dad and my brother.
He was a coach there, yeah.
Yeah. And sent a handwritten note to my brother and to my dad. It was great to play with you. If there's anything you ever need. First time I ever met him with Marina, we were having difficulty in getting our son green card and deal with all the stuff coming into the United States.
Yeah.
And Lou sat down with my wife and said, so tell me what exactly I can do for you. Like before, she didn't ask anything. She said, well, she starts crying a little bit and tells him the story. He said, so he went all the way up into the White House. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Yep.
Other than just to help.
Yep.
And it's just like, man.
I mean,
and Harvey did the same thing.
Success leaves clues. Like this is who these men were. I mean, my son played football at SMU, and he had a young guy who was a walk-on who was like Rudy, and he fought, and he finally gets to start. And he's going to start against Texas A&M, and the day before they're doing a walkthrough practice, he breaks his foot, and it's his senior year, and he's just crestfallen. And Lou would always say, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? And of course, I'd never cash in those favors.
Yeah, right.
I said,
that's the other trick.
Yeah.
Don't cash in.
Right.
Don't cash in favors too early.
Yeah. And
it's really bad. Try and make sure that there's always a deposit before you try and make a withdrawal.
Yeah.
Do the deposits first.
Yeah, 5 to 1.
Yeah.
5 to 1.
Way higher.
And I typically, if ever I cash in a deposit, it's usually on someone else's behalf.
Yeah.
Rarely on my own.
Yeah.
But I called him up. I said, Lou, would you call this kid? And he goes, ask me something hard. And he called that young man. He had Jerome Bettis, who was this kid's favorite player, send him a signed jersey. And this young man, I mean, to this day, he actually moved to San Diego. And this young man said, like, it was his dream was to walk out and play Division I football. He never got to have that dream. But he said it was like the greatest sign of God's providence in his life, that in the midst of this heartbreak, it was one of the most amazing experiences of his life. That jersey is framed in the entrance to his home.
Wow.
But Lou Holtz, like she said, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? And it's not just talk. Here's the other part of it is, a lot of people say that.
Yeah.
What can I do for you? He did chase that visa for your son. And he's in your heart forever. He's in your family's heart forever.
Yep. Harvey did the same. And he was the king of that.
He was.
He's still.
Yeah.
To this day. He's 93, shoots his handicap every day. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's out there 5 rounds a week.
Yeah.
At 93 years old.
Yeah. And then what a connector. What a connector. Unbelievable.
But again, with gratitude for him, I when he won the Horatio Alger Award, I took out a full page ad in USA Today.
You did?
Yeah. Full page.
Oh,
wow. Just a big, hero shot of Harvey. Oh. And congratulations for Horatio Alger, which is still framed in his office. He's just a legend.
You're a good guy. I get to know you better. I'm waiting for the wine. This will be.
Yeah, come on,
I'm sending you a note. I'm looking for the wine.
It's right outside the door. You like wine?
A little bit. Yeah. I do.
My wife really likes it. I like it. A little bit here and there.
Right. That's me.
I'm watching Peaky Blinders, and I need to have some scotch. They're always drinking scotch.
I did make an investment in a gin company. I don't know if that's related to Peaky Blinders.
There you go.
It might have been inspired by that.
Something. It never seems to bother them. They seem to be okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other lessons that you've learned? I mean, I've been a trainer around the world, and I pivoted from, and it sounds like similar numbers, I only have the one book, which is stupid, but it's sold like 5 million copies around the world. And I need to kick out a couple more this year.
Yeah, right. Come on, let's go.
Is my intention, but I keep getting dragged into, other stuff that takes my time.
Yeah.
But I think you start off, you're bouncing between crisis and survival, right? Which is where most people are. And it's all externally driven. When you hit a crisis, you got to get $500 to pay your phone bill, or they're going to turn it off. You always do it. But as soon as you survive, and you start falling back to crisis again. And most people are stuck in that, in that range. Then there's between survival and success. Now that's inner driven, right? It's not outer reasons. If you have strong enough reasons, you get the next 500 when you don't need to, right? So but it's about ambition, and it's about achievement. It's about, putting your oxygen mask on before you help out somebody else. But then there's a level above success I found, which is significance. And that is finding your fuel in other people's success. It becomes about contribution. My love language in business is, am I able to contribute? And not until people get to the level that we're at, do people really believe that?
Yes.
Because when people just chase success, it's pretty empty.
Yeah.
And
I've met some poor billionaires.
Yeah. There's Dan Sullivan has a book called The Gap and the Gain. Have you seen that book?
Yes.
Interesting. It's the same concept that we live with, but it's well said to be able to say, if you're focused on where you should be versus where you are, that's one thing, but versus focusing on where you started and where you are.
Right.
That's another thing. One's gratitude. The other one's kind of failed expectations, always feeling bad because you're not.
And a loss of perspective.
Bigger. Yeah.
Yeah.
So contribution's been my biggest fuel.
Nice.
I still like being in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Playing with the big boys.
For sure.
I love getting in rooms that make me feel small.
Yeah.
Because, you get in some of these rooms and you just got to be quiet.
Yeah.
Just pay attention because wow, these are titans.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that burn.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, why am I playing so small? Let's go.
Yeah, right. And you find out like it's, we make these little prison cells for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and we just get on the plateau, and it's like you meet this guy, and that's all of a sudden, you meet these billionaire people, and you go, hold on a second here, like that was not revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
Now there were signs, there were subtleties, but he's just decided to play at a different game. It's like someone who's decided to live in a certain neighborhood. It's a guy who just decided, made a decision. I'm like, that's a pretty good decision.
Yeah. Yeah. So in all of this, where do you get where does your joy come from?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a man of faith and I'm a man of family. People, the Irish did a TV show. I mean, like their version of 60 Minutes, right? And it's the Paddy Made Good story type thing. And they entitled it The Millionaire Maker, right? Because we've helped a lot of people become millionaires. And they said, well, your legacy and this. And I said, I want to be honest with you. My legacy is my faith and my family. That's my legacy. But I said, in regards to this sense of purpose I have with my life, our company's mission is to impact and improve the lives and livelihoods of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the stories. That's where I get the juice. That's where I get the juice.
Mm-hmm.
It's the stories of lives transformed. We say, work by referral, live the good life. So yesterday at Worre Studios, I shared a story of a lady named Janelle Schmittling, and she came to us, and her story was, it's 2:00 in the morning. She has 2 kids. She's barely making it as a realtor. She's desperate. Her husband's struggling with alcohol, and she's selling 6-7 homes a year, and she's not paying her bills. And she starts searching around real estate coach, and she comes to our website. Our website it's not the greatest website in the world, but it features stories of our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And she saw the story of one of our clients who was a rags to riches type story. And she went, if he can do it, maybe I can do it. Starts the journey. And goes through the whole process. Now, the husband had, he ended up rolling his car and ended up in rehab. They were separated, all kinds of stuff. Well, she follows the path, pays the price. She's very disciplined with the system.
Mm-hmm.
Had her goals, stayed true to the course, and then immersed herself in personal growth and community of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so now she's there, and here's the years, here's the deal, and whatever else. And now here she is, and she's got a team, and she did $200 million in sales last year, and yada, yada, yada. The husband, she was able to get him the help he need. He's back home. Mm-hmm. Every time I see that video, I've seen it made. We have hundreds of these. I tear up. I showed it to my family.
Sure.
And I go, Dad's on the road, but Thanksgiving. I go, just so you know, you guys have all contributed to that.
Yeah.
And that's still the juice for me. That is more than anything else. Like, seeing that family put together, this gal who wasn't, who now is.
Mm-hmm.
And what did she say? The biggest thing that's changed in my life is my confidence.
Right.
I believe in myself. And she said, the reason I agreed to do this video is that maybe someone is sitting in their bedroom at 2 a.m. and they don't know what to do. And I want them to know there's hope and you can do it. And so that's the juice. I know that's your juice.
It is. Tell me, I'm guessing we're similar age.
57.
Yeah, you're 57, I'm 60.
Okay. You look good.
So, well, I'm trying. It becomes a battle at some point.
It's a lot harder than it was at 40.
I'm going to win the war. But how many days a year do you travel?
So I used to travel a ton.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I bought the planes.
Mm-hmm.
And I do still 120 seminars a year. And then, but I was interested in staying married and having kids. So I had a goal every year to do less, to the point that like last year I did 6 seminars.
Oh, wow.
But now I do them on a bigger scale.
Big scale, yeah.
And, and now that I've discovered Worre Studios, I'm going to be one of I used to be this guy and now I'm that. I'm going to be one of your testimonials.
Yeah.
And we'll have tens of thousands on the next one.
Yep.
And fantastic. So I cut it down. Now what's happened is all my kids are getting married and they got family. And now I'm actually, believe it or not, I worked very hard to get off the road.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Jim Rohn, who was, he was like a father to me.
Mm-hmm.
One of my greatest regrets in life is that every time Jim was around me, I made him feel sad. The man who changed my life, probably as influential, if not more, than my own father, because he would always come to the seminar and meet my wife and kids. And Jim used to say it subtly in his recordings. If I'd have known the cost, I wouldn't have paid the price.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to know him, I found out what that was.
Yeah.
And he'd lost a few marriages.
Yeah.
And I said, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
And that's why I bought an airplane. Not for lifestyles and rich and famous. I was like, I'm in Houston in the morning.
I'll be home at night.
I'm going to be home. I'm going to coach the basketball team and have dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. And it takes a toll, as you well know. I mean, it's not easy. My plane became my office, and so on and so forth. And then over time, I was able to shrink it all down. And
is it mostly in the United States, or is it other places?
We're in 40 countries.
Wow.
And so, like, I mean, if you
the principles apply everywhere.
Well, like if you're in South Africa, you must use the Brian Buffini training program, or you can't get your real estate license. I know your bride's from Ukraine. I mean, boy, you talk about people like that, like Czechoslovakians. I mean, people who were underneath the gun, underneath communism, are the greatest entrepreneurs in the world. And, sometimes I'm sitting here going, hey, let's wake up. Like, it's easy here in America. Like,
they're hungrier.
Compared to, it's easier. Success isn't easy, but it's easier.
Right.
It's easier here than it is in Czechoslovakia. Or it was like, I'm going down to Argentina next month.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have 3,000 people down there. Their economy, they've had 500% inflation.
Yeah.
The story. And they are out the door, fired up. The best producers you can believe. They dominate the market space, and they just get it, and they take a licking, and we're like, oh my God, inflation's 9%. And they're like, no, we were like 120 last year, and they get it done. So, and by the way, when you go down there, it reminds me of being an immigrant. When I go down there, it reminds me of that juice, and I'm like, yeah, because you can get to the point, right? We get to a point, like the fast food's not fast enough, this and that and the other. I had a guy working for me that when he started working for me, he was literally living on a shed, on a lot, like living in a van down by the river. And he was a great AV guy. And I was traveling all the time. And you need those guys that have a bit of an edge to them. You're kind of a roadie.
Yeah.
And I never forget it one time. He's in the back of the jet. And we had flown from New York, and it was a Lear 45. So we didn't have full range from New York to San Diego. So he had filet mignon and drinks and whatever. I always treat the guys great. We land in Colorado Springs to refuel, get out, walk around. And I always used to have, a little snack the second leg. Well, anyway, the people didn't have cheese and crackers for the jet. Now, this guy 8 years ago is living in a van down by the river. And he bitched in the back of the jet from Colorado all the way to San Diego, to the point that made it into my book. And I said, when you lose perspective and you lose that edge, you start to lose that gratitude and appreciation. Every time I got on the airplane, I went, this is God's plane. This is fantastic. This is amazing. I can't believe it. This is great. And I enjoyed the living daylights out of it for 17 years. And then it's easy for a guy to lose perspective, and he's bitching and moaning about not having cheese and crackers on the back of the plane. So when you're around people who are hungry, when you go, and in your business, you've got to see it all the time. Mm-hmm. It just inspires you. It just fires you up. It makes you appreciate what you have.
Yeah.
It makes you appreciate your journey. And that's why if you're a person who's been doing what you've been doing a long time, go and hang out with a rookie.
Yeah.
By the way, you can mentor them, bring them along, help them.
You got to have those work clothes on.
Yeah, but you get that juice. Mm-hmm. And the people who have that fire, I like being around young people.
Yeah.
And they've got the juice, and they don't listen to, you can't do this and you can't do your generation. I find the next generation have, in many ways, they're miles ahead of us.
Yeah. They sure can be. They have tools today.
They have.
How many people are you coaching at any one period of time?
We have 20,000 people right now.
Being coached.
Yeah. And then we'll have, we have 20,000 members, and then we'll have.
How many coaches have you trained that do the coaching?
Oh, I mean, over the years, a lot of people.
Yeah. So you have a certified coaching program?
Yeah, we certified coaching program. All our coaches used to be in San Diego. And then, of course, after COVID,
right.
Now they're all.
So 20,000 people are part of the program?
In different versions of it. So we have our most intense version of, you might have it in 5,000 blocks.
Yeah.
So you have the people who get the most intense one-on-one type thing. And then there's people who might there's a secondary version with
small groups
and things like that. We have like in the US alone, we have 390 small groups that meet every month.
Wow.
So that, and then we have a facilitator in each group. One of our clients is a member who volunteers, and then they get groups of 10 and 12 get together and they brainstorm, right? Because the community is key, right? Who you're hanging out with.
Right.
Fly with the eagles or hang out with the ducks.
Right. Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And
then the training programs are what go over all
over
the world.
Sure. That's the broadest.
Yeah.
You're 57. I'm 60. I want to live till I'm 120.
Nice.
It used to be 100, but I'm focused on 120. My anti-aging doctor says I need to show up by like 2032 or so in reasonable health. And he said 120 is a lock.
Okay.
With all the advancements in technology, you just have to don't screw it up.
Nice.
Don't create huge system problems.
That's encouraging.
Yeah. So we both have a lot of time. I mean, it's different when you think about our
Mm.
grandparents
Yeah.
at this age
Yeah.
and our great grandparents
Yeah.
at this age. They looked old.
My mom and dad are still alive at 93 and 94.
Yeah. So we're gonna be productive for a long time.
Lord willing.
And I don't really understand retirement fully
Mhm.
because I've been in a success coma a few times in my life. You
Yes.
get so much success, you're kind of walking through it.
Yeah.
You're playing too much golf, and you don't realize that you're in the coma until you come out of it. You go, wow, those were 5 years.
Yeah.
I was just kind of going through the motions.
Mm.
I only asked that to ask this: what's next? If you could look into the future for you, what do you see?
What next started today, being here with you. So people they'll say, you're the biggest thing no one ever heard of. And I focused on my niche. I was in real estate. And we have all these other businesses who've jumped into the coaching over years. Like you're coaching my husband, and so we'll facilitate that. But I've been focused on my niche. Jim Rohn said, get rich in a niche. I took it to heart. So I've been doing that for decades. I've loved it. I've enjoyed it. But I've decided, to me, I have this phrase, it's a good life. We help folks set it's a good life, spiritual, family, business, financial, personal. And so what I want to do is, in the time I have left, is expand my influence. And it's not even a business model. There'll be some kind of a model to support the people I'm bringing in who can help that happen.
You know what I found? I started Network Marketing Pro 15 years ago, 2000 March 2009.
Yeah.
Coming up on 16, and had no business plan.
Yeah.
It was just I was going to start.
Right.
And it started with Jim Rohn. If Jim Rohn had a camera in his pocket for all of his journeys, and he videoed it and sent out, had an archive of all of this stuff versus just mostly audio.
Right.
That would be a cool little thing to leave.
Amazing. Yeah.
So I said, I'm never going to be a Jim Rohn, but I'll try.
Yeah.
And that's where it started. And then the business showed up.
Right.
Events showed up, and
Yep.
the studio showed up, the travels around the world showed up, clients showed up, everything just happened.
Right.
But I'd love to say it was part of a business plan. It wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. When I say business plan, it's more
you know what I
getting
mean.
myself organized. Absolutely. And the other part of it is, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, But I think for me, I think the world is drowning in information and starving for wisdom. And I want to connect with people like yourself. And I want to bring people who've been there and done that, who actually are, I was on The Apprentice on Tuesday, and I wrote my autobiography on Friday. And then, here's the latest thing. And it. I mean, the net is full of it. And, there's a lot of young people, they're brilliant, but my kids will show me stuff and they're like, yeah, whatever you do, don't invest, don't buy a house. What you should do is, no chance. Here it is. Take all your money and buy like a restaurant. I'm like, tackle them. Like, that's not maybe, but that's not. And so why? Because they're 26 years of age and have never done anything, but they're getting likes and hits and they're selling.
Everybody wants to be an influencer.
Yeah. So I actually want to be a person of influence. I don't want to be an influencer. And I think I just want to take beyond the real estate space and share some of the personal growth and development stuff that I've learned, and really expose people to a network of people who've got wisdom. And wherever that goes, it goes. And there's a number of people out there doing that. I just want to bring my flavor to it.
Yeah.
And so that's really for me.
There's a lot of, there's a need for the next generation of voices.
Yeah.
One thing you'll find interesting is at age 50, Jim Rohn was virtually unknown. Most of his impact happened between 50 and the time he died.
Right. Zig was 47 when he started.
So, I always often think about who's the next generation. I'm sure Jim was like, am I the next generation?
Man.
When he was looking at Earl Nightingale and he's looking at all these different greats.
Yeah. Never thought of that.
And you're like, I'm going to do my best.
Right.
And that's where I think we are.
Yeah.
Let's do our best.
Right.
And see what happens. And the next generation, there's going to be generations beyond us, and people doing things.
Well, even this conversation today, I mean, right off the bat in this conversation, I mean, obviously we have a lot of similar influences and a similar journey. But when you start with, hey, here's where I screwed up, and here's where I went wrong, and here's where it hurt, and we can identify with one another enormously from that. That's not what's talked about today. Success.
Everybody wants to look perfect.
It's 1995. It's 3 easy payments, and you're going to have it done, and you're going to be a million. Start at 25, and you're a millionaire by 26. I was a millionaire at 23. I was an unmillionaire at 26. Okay.
And then people say, well, it's better to, at least you had it.
Yeah. No.
Well,
No, it wasn't.
If to have had it, be a person that used to have money,
Yeah.
and not have it again, it sucks.
It's the worst.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Now, again, look, if you never had it, I understand that probably sucks too.
Yeah.
But I mean, your ego takes a beating.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I, the one superpower I've had is I don't treat myself so seriously.
There you go.
And I learned that because I did early.
And by the way, that's another gift to bring to the marketplace. The whole world has taken itself too seriously. I was talking with my friend Bill Hampton last night. I said, ever since the Spice Girls and the Kardashians, where you're not supposed to smile, and I said, everybody's got a poker up their butt. And it's like, no. And one of the great things about being Irish is not only do we not take ourselves too seriously, we don't take anyone else too seriously.
Right.
And here's a great example of that. This is, a name drop-in story.
Yeah, please.
If you can live me. And this will actually incorporate everything. One of the things that amazes me when I was a kid was the American space program. Kennedy, everyone in Ireland had a picture of Kennedy in their house. We're going to put a man on the moon, bring him safely to Earth by the end of the decade. Just like when he said that, and then America did it in July before the end of the decade. So I became fascinated with the American space program and just the shock of it all and putting a man on the moon and the whole thing. And I came to America and I just became enamored with it. And then when I got in the plane game, Gene Cernan, the last man on the moon, he flew our plane and I got to connect and so on and so forth. So I've had Jim Lovell at our seminars and whatever else. But now this will tell you where I was at. In 2002, our company's net income was $75,000. And I had heard that the most private man around the world was Neil Armstrong, who wouldn't do a speaking engagement. And I started, through a contact, started reaching out to him, started writing him personal notes and reaching out. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you. I think our audience, yada, yada. And so I write all these notes to him. And finally, he takes one of my notes and writes on the back of it, "Are you going to keep writing me notes?" And sent it to me. And I took that note and a big marker, I said, "Yep," and sent it back to him. Next thing you know, I'll get a phone call. So his agent says, and he'll do it for $75,000, which was our entire net earnings for the year before. And I said, I'm in. On the business side of that, we went from our biggest seminar ever had been 4,200 people. When Neil Armstrong showed up, I think 4,600 showed up here at the MGM. I go to do the event. And this is a man who's had his hair clipping sold. He's had his privacy violated. For years, any politician wanted to trot something out, bring out the astronaut. So they were just used and abused to the point that he retreated, became like a hermit, professor at Ohio State University. So I'm trying to build a connection with him. We have in our contract to make a connection before he comes out and speaks in an interview. Going to have a talk. You do this all the time. Yep. And this is nothing. This is nothing. I'm sure you've had some difficult interviews. I'm talking to him. And I'd ask him a question. None of them were yes or no questions. All of them were yes or no answers. One time I asked him a question, and again, Irish sense of humor. I say something to him, and I hear nothing. And finally I go, over. And I can't get out from this guy. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I've just spent the entire company's net earnings on bringing this guy in, and he's given me nothing. So he comes over. He's being very standoffish, so on and so forth. He came in the day before. He wanted to see our audience. He hadn't done a speaking engagement in years. And he sits down with my family. And we had in the contract have lunch with us. And it's all stiff arm, no energy. Well, again, the Irish are pretty funny people. Yeah. And my dad, a very quiet man, is sitting next to him. My brother Dermot's trying to break the ice. You see over our company. He goes, Neil, when you were on that moon, I wasn't even on this planet. Mm-hmm. And my dad goes, Dermot, because of me looking at that moon, that's why you're on this planet. Yeah. Well, Neil Armstrong almost upchucks his meal. Okay. And then he goes, just like you did, he goes, you Irish. He goes, I remember going to Ireland in off to the races. He says to me, would it be okay if I stood at the back of the stage for each one of your sessions? I'd like to hear what you're talking about. So I'd come off stage and he's standing there and he had a page full of books and notes. What about this? And when you said this and when you said that? And that night he went out and he started meeting the people. Well, the next day we had produced this massive soundtrack and massive introduction. He came on stage, he's got the tears coming down his face, the whole thing. And that interview, which made it into a movie, by the way, and an exhibit, it was the greatest experience of my speaking life. But the magic point of that was treating him like a person, writing personal notes. But it was when we didn't take ourselves too seriously that he now felt that he could take it down and not take himself too seriously.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting to build a relationship with the first man on the moon.
Mm.
And that, I would say, I've done 2,500 seminars. That particular event stands out as, and it was, you know, I would say I peaked 22 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget that the rest of my
Treat
life.
people like people.
Yeah. And it broke down the barriers. And then the next day he went on and did a thing with Wolf Blitzer and gave him nothing. Back to the yes and no answers. And poor old Wolf was in the situation room dying on TV, you know? But he didn't build a relationship.
Yeah. I've had those. And you got to like learn to get past all the same stuff. When Sylvester Stallone comes, you don't just say, well, tell me what it was like to write Rocky.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's like, come on.
Right.
You know, keep punching. We're going to keep,
Yeah.
we're going to stay there.
Yeah.
Or we're going to talk about, you know.
So how would you do that? How do you met Sly? You're going to have him at your gig. I know he was at your studios. How do you break the ice?
We talked, I did my homework.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
He's an artist, more than an actor.
Like a painter.
He's an artist in everything.
Mm.
Everything he does, he approaches it as an artist.
Interesting.
So he's a writer, he's a painter, he's a director, he's a master of the visual craft. Okay. He's written 56 screenplays and 48 of them have been turned into movies. Show me somebody who's done that.
No, never heard of it.
He's fanatical about Edgar Allan Poe. Okay. I didn't know any of these things. So, you know, what does painting give to you? You know, what are your secrets of how do you actually write? Because what's the flow of it? Mm. You know, the tangible. Right. What time of day do you write? Right. You know, do you write?
And you're trying to get unstuck and write a book and going into his sweet spot.
Yeah,
he's probably happy to give you advice.
He loves talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, he loves talking about it in movies and stuff too. Sure, yeah. Because he knows that that's part of the game. Right. Right. Yeah. Everybody wants to see that, but you know, getting to know the person, and looking for commonality. Yeah. You know.
Well, you also said a little secret, right? And really successful people whisper these things and then move on. You said, I did my homework and moved on. How many people don't do their homework?
No, they don't. They just come in and they got their 10 questions to ask Rocky.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. So yeah, well, look, this has all been great. How do people find you? If they want to get their training or want to buy your book or any of that stuff?
BuffiniandCompany.com.
Buffini and Company.
Yep. Buffini. Not hard to find.
And AND?
And company.com.
And company.com. Yep. And we'll put that in the show notes.
Great. Appreciate it.
And this has been fun.
Yeah.
Fun to just talk about the common journeys. Yeah. And you know, I found, like you said, success does leave clues. Right. That's why we call this Excellence Project, is just, you know, being world-class, putting your name on something. That's what it still comes down to. Mm-hmm. You know, can you put your name on it? Be proud of it. And there's levels to that too. You bet. Right? Because sometimes you look at your old stuff and you're like, oh, I put my name on it then, but
it was the best.
Man, I got better.
Yeah. Excellence is doing the best you can with what you have in the time frame allowed.
Yeah.
My first event was excellent. It's not like what they are today.
Yes.
But so don't be paralyzed by the perfectionism. But this has been a treat. I feel like we're brothers from a different mother.
Man. We're going to do lots of stuff together.
That's great.
Thank you for coming along. Excellent. And I look forward to seeing more of your stuff. And next time you do an event in the studio, I'm going to be there, sitting backstage, taking my own notes.
Thanks a million.
All right. Appreciate it. So that's my conversation with Brian Buffini. I hope you enjoyed it. I know that I did. We are kindred spirits in teaching, in our life journey and personal development and growth. Hope you got some lessons from this message. If you did, do me a favor and do somebody else a favor and send this to them. If you know anybody in real estate, send this to them so they can listen to this. If you know somebody interested in personal development, send this to them so they can listen as well. Okay. I appreciate you helping us to spread the word so more people get value. That's it for today. I will see you next time. Take care.